You know who this is? Eva Lavara.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So we can either have a factory computer control everything, or we can make up our own control strategy. There's a bunch of different ways you can make it work. Or you could have, like what I like to do, I think the best way to do it is you have a computer, factory Nissan computer, control it how you want to control it, but then you have an override. So you can make the ECU, like under certain conditions, do this, like go full automatic, you know, full all-wheel drive, or go full rear-wheel drive. Because normally,
how does that work with an electrical signal, like with?
Just there's solenoids here. I'll show you. This is kind of what's going on in the all-wheel drive system. Let's see if I can get a good way to look at it. Okay, kind of like this. So this is the simple one. This is
Where does that have it? So that is totally away from the transfer case or all-wheel drive system part that I have, right? That he bought.
Correct. So the part that he bought will have a little actuator on the back of it.
Right.
So here's the actuator on the back of it. When pressure goes in here, this has a little push rod in here that pushes on a clutch pack in here, and that locks it up into all-wheel drive. So there's a line that runs here. So the line is controlled by just a solenoid.
Okay.
There's a pump. There's a pressure switch. Make sure it doesn't go over about 280 psi. And then when the ECU tells us to click, bang, it sends pressure to this. As soon as it's done doing that, it lets go, and then the pressures can come back and goes back up to your reservoir. So it'll bleed it back through, So you have to have it. I mean, I have an extra one of these. This isn't a Pro, so this is a standard system, the electronic torque split. This would work fine on his car because he doesn't have an active rear diff. On the V-Specs and the things that have the ETS Pro, you'd actually have the ability to lock the center diff on and off for all-wheel drive, and independent wheels in the rear. So you could either have a locked rear diff or you have an open rear diff.
Okay.
Yeah, so the one that's on the 33 right now is actually a Pro system, so it has both. It's a little bit more complex. But this is what was used on the 32s and the non-V-Spec 33s. And then what they did is, as they went through the 32, 33, 34, all that they did was kind of improve the computer side of it. So the computer can actuate these solenoids faster. It doesn't actually actuate them faster. It can make the calculations to know if it needs to actuate them, because it's sampling all the things.
So that is just how much current it gives it to how much pressure to let in or out of it.
Yeah, this is just like a nitrous solenoid or any other type of solenoid. It's just like, do you let the pressure in to push this, or do you not?
If it goes full open, full pressure. If it pulses,
it
controls how much, the percentages.
You got it. You got it. So it can pulse it. It can make it go full open, or it can keep it closed.
Okay.
And then what they did on the 33s, they also put what they called a fail-safe solenoid in here, and that helps it hold a little bit of pressure. So it always makes it a little bit of
so it's always
all-wheel
using
drive.
All-wheel drive. So it's
yeah,
always
maybe like they say 2% in some documentations, they say 10% in other documentations. The bottom line is there's a little bit of pressure in the 33, but the 32 doesn't have it. That's why you can do a burnout in the 32. Okay. 33, if you try to do the burnout, you can burn up the clutch disc because there is a little bit of pressure in there.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's.
And the pump is activated strictly 12 volts?
Yeah, just 12 volt system. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Well, we can go on the car now. I'll show you kind of. Okay, so what we did here, this is what we were kind of looking at before. There was the pump.
That's the pump system.
This is just a nitrogen charge that just helps get bubbles out of it.
That's the solenoid.
This is the solenoid.
And this is what, the inlet?
Yeah, but this solenoid here, this one is what I was talking about before. This is for the active LSD. So this actually goes to the LSD in the back.
So there's two of them.
And then the one that we were kind of looking at over there is on the inside. And this one, you see there's the solenoid, and then on the back there's another solenoid. That's that fail-safe solenoid that I was telling you about.
The one that always holds a little bit of pressure.
And so basically what I'm doing here is, this is the nut that goes, the banjo on that goes to the reservoir. Goes straight up to the center diff.
Okay.
So I just basically cap that. Now I'm going to be able to read the pressure on that and make a determination, you know, do I need to change anything with my program?
How big is that sensor?
This one goes to 500 psi. You could use one that only goes to 300 psi if you want it to have a little bit more resolution. It's kind of up to you. but I was going to stick this on there and...
All you need is the number. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, just something that has pretty good resolution.
Yeah, I do see the line. Okay, I know exactly what line that is.
Yeah, so that's all you have to do. It's pretty simple.
Now, what's up with this aluminum thing right here? Is that just a spacer you made or something?
Take a look.
Right at the dry shaft?
Good question. That might have been something that we made when we converted over to a carbon fiber drive shaft.
Okay.
Because this originally had I believe this had this has a two-piece normally. A two-piece steel drive shaft, and I converted it to a single-piece carbon fiber.
Nice transmission.
Yeah, that's the Hollinger. That thing has been bulletproof. I think I put at least 40,000 miles on it. About
Yeah, yours looks a little bit different from Rob's. Actually, yours is a little bit smaller. It looks a little bit smaller, not as wide.
Well, that's good if he's got one that gets that gear spacing a bit wider.
Is this a 5-speed or 6-speed?
That's a 6.
Oh, dang, yeah, same thing. You bought this one a long time ago, though, huh?
Yeah, I bought that when it didn't cost both an arm and a leg.
An arm and a leg.
It was just an arm back then.
I think Rob had to pay like 20, 22, 23.
Yeah, it's worth every.
Adapters.
It sounds
Like
horrible,
but
but it's actually worth every penny.
I believe you.
I wouldn't tell anybody to go any other route but the Hollinger. You know, unless if they're lucky enough to have a 34, they already got a pretty stout transmission in that. So they can get away with something a little bit less, but if they've got a 33 or a 32, they might as well just bite the bullet and do it.
The thing I like is, like you said, you can use them on the street.
Yeah, it has the bevel cut gears instead of straight gears, so it doesn't make a lot of gear noise.
And they're streetable.
Yeah, streetable.
That's awesome.
Because normally the factory computer, when the car launches, it's rear-wheel drive, and then it kind of kicks it into all-wheel drive. On each gear change, you'll see it kick into all-wheel drive for a second, and then depending on how you are in a turn, you know, it tries to give you a balance of all-wheel drive and two-wheel drive, so that if you had all-wheel drive all the time, the car would almost be like a front-wheel drive, be a lot of understeer. You try to make a turn and it just wants to keep going straight. But what they can do is they can actually, especially on the active one, just put the power to this wheel on the inside wheels and stuff like that, or lock them up and make the car rotate a lot better.
How does the computer determine that it has little G-forces in there?
It has, on this there's, I think a total of 3 accelerometers. There's one at the back here, and there's one 2-axis in the middle, and it kind of gives it an idea of, you know, what's the slip angle, how's everything going on, you know, how's the car sitting. It also knows the throttle position, it knows the engine RPM, so it knows a lot of those things. It's taking the individual speeds at about, on this car 100 times a second, on the 34 V-Specs they do it 1,000 times a second. They're taking all that information and then processing it and saying, okay, we want it to be this % all-wheel drive, we want it to be this % locked in the rear, and even on the ABS, they can individually just grab a brake on one of the wheels on the 33s and 34s. So if it needs to just tap a brake to do something to keep the car doing what it's supposed to be doing, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, they're real. I know. I've read into their trick. It's amazing.
It's probably one of the reasons why, unlike the R35, why you look at the stats and that compared to like a Porsche 911S, it's like on paper, the Porsche should be able to kick its butt. You know, it's lighter, same power to weight, same power, but less weight, and all these other things, and that transmission shifts quicker than the R35, but it's the all-wheel drive system that kind of gives the Nissans a big advantage, and it hasn't changed much since the 32, 33, 34, all were kind of improvements, and then the 35, of course, a lot faster processing and stuff like that. One of the things we did on it that I recommend for anybody, this is like the best thing I ever did. I was like, you know, I had my Camaro back in the days, you'd always put subframe connectors on it. The nice thing about putting subframe connectors on a unibody car like this, when you put the cage in, is it ties it in the bottom. It's like adding an extra bar on the bottom. And now you've got a jacking point where any idiot's going to jack the car from the right point and not be,
It's not even real thick, huh?
No, it's not too bad. It's not too thick.
So it's not a good idea to put on the Mazdas.
Yeah.
RX2s and RX3s.
Yeah, because there's nothing there, you know.
Yeah, no, all it is that little square piece like this. That's all there is.
Yeah, these were some of the parts we did over the years that were kind of cool. Was this Y pipe here that we made, because we needed to make something that would go from titanium to stainless, and it's always a problem, you know. Back in the days, you couldn't find titanium flanges and this and that, and it was just really difficult. So we did a double slip here. So this is actually a double slip. So this slips inside there, and we just put a little clamp on there, and you know, it holds it really nice, doesn't leak. But this alone, I think, improving this Y. We did this. Burns made us this Y, and I think just changing the same boost level, everything else, we picked up about 75 horsepower.
I bet you if you go it up bigger, you just pick up more.
Well, you would say that until you see how small these turbos are. See, these turbos, the outlet of the turbos is really small. These were the
I've seen them, they look a little around.
yeah,
But it's the horsepower level I don't like.
yeah, but you'd be surprised what you could stuff through that thing. These turbos are the RH6 turbos, the IHIs that they used in the 1980s in Formula One on the Hondas. And so it's a really, really small, lightweight turbo that flows a lot. Already we're at 1240. Not even maxing out the boost right now, so it'll probably get about 1300 off the bottle on these turbos, and it's just a 60.5 millimeter inducer on them, so it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's real good. real good.
But finding parts for them is next to impossible. It took me 2 years to find a different turbine housing, a bigger turbine housing. It took forever to find, but thanks to guys at Force Performance and some people in the UK and June looking on eBay and stuff, we finally tracked them down. So right now we've got pretty much the biggest ones you'd put on an inline six. They're P22, so it's a little bit larger.
I think you said they're only 16 mil.
Yeah, 60.5 millimeter inducers.
They got us full up like crazy.
No, they don't.
Also kind of laggy.
They're kind of laggy, you know. The efficiency on them is not what it would be nowadays, but the package and the bearing structure is pretty insane. I've had intercooler pipe blow off. I've had all the things happen that normally result in a pretty big turbo failure. And I've had these things on the car for 15 years, beating the crap out of them. So, not many turbos that can do that, but small. Pretty small turbine housing. So one of the things we're going to be doing some testing on is right over there. That
Look how big and nice the compressor is.
compressor housing is nice. Super lightweight, these turbos. There's nothing to the center section.
And I saw they're tiny.
Oil only, so you don't have to worry about running coolant to them. But that's one thing we're going to be trying out, that the AEM's dual channel lambda controller. So that one uses the new X Series technology, which is a lot faster than what you get on board with the Infinity. So we're going to try it actually.
4.9s.
And they use 4.9s, which, you know, 4.2s are eventually going to go away. So right now
already have one. Yeah.
I have the factory ones right here, or not the factory ones, but the ones that are running on the AEM. And then I'll basically pull those off. I just got one more wire to run inside because
So they'll run into here, and then then the Infinity will log that.
And the cool thing is, there's only basically 4 wires between that and the Infinity. So once you get all your wiring done out here, it's only 4 wires. It's just power,
Infinity.
ground, and then two CAN wires, and that's it. And it'll pick up all that on the CAN, so you don't have to do anything.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Get to dial it in a little bit because at least we have one per bank. Because these 3 cylinders only feed this turbo, those 3 cylinders only that one. So we can do a little bit of correction. You know, it'd be nice if we had at least individual EGTs, which we don't, but you know, so you can really tune.
Is this for water temp or pressure?
Water pressure.
Okay.
So that way we can see if we're pushing the head gasket and stuff. That was one issue we recently
You know, one
had.
thing that Richard Lee told me one time was one of his big secrets on the outboard motors. He started running mechanical water pumps. He said because before he did that and he didn't build enough pressure,
Yep.
they would blow head gaskets this easy.
Yeah,
He said he went to a mechanical water pump and he actually pressurized everything. He goes, it was like 70% stronger.
wow, that's crazy. I know on the difference between mechanicals and the electrics, the problem is the electrics water pumps can't flow as much. You can flow more constantly, you can flow when the car's shut off, and there's a lot of advantages, but
Not overall volume.
yeah, overall volume, the mechanicals are going to generally...
Have you seen it make any, how much pressure does it make just running, like high RPM?
It doesn't cavitate at all. We don't get any pressure. I mean,
No.
what we're getting is just the pressure of the cap. So just depending on what things heat
So
up to.
20 pounds?
Yeah, whatever
15
it is.
pounds, 20
yeah,
pounds, okay.
15, 17 pounds, yeah. But we used to, when we had an issue with steam pockets in there, we would get like 30, 40 PSI in there. And of course you blow a head gasket, you can get 100 PSI in there. Blow a head gasket on an RV, and you'll end up with what with this?
Dang. That sucker.
Yeah, you want to hear something?
Look at this one.
I'll tell you something.
How did it even, wow.
Now, the impressive thing about this,
It didn't rip.
it still holds. It still holds fluid.
That's a good made unit.
It-
CNR, that's good to
CNRs,
know.
they're damn good radiators.
Yeah.
They don't advertise in DSPORT, you know, so I can't I can't tell people to buy it, but
CNR.
no, it's actually it's a really good product. We also had a good result back in the days with the fluidines.
Yeah.
Right now we got the coil radiator in there. It's
Those are
working
good,
fine.
too.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
really inexpensive. We ran into is, I don't know if it was the radiator or just the mix of chemicals we used. We had a reaction in it. It was actually like foaming. You know, normally we use distilled water, some what is it, the purple ice from Royal Purple, and some anti-rust, and that's kind of like been our mix.
It was anti-rust that did it.
And yeah, it was
The
one of those
anti-rust
three
was the
things.
purple ice.
It just went, and we're sitting here and the thing was foaming and foaming, and we're like, oh no, we thought we blew a head gasket, and we just had to keep flushing it, and now we're just running distilled water with a little bit of.
Good, I heard from people.
What's that?
The Evans waterless. You just have to be real careful cleaning it.
I don't know. The Evans waterless, I've heard such mixed results. The reality is, it doesn't transfer heat very well. But it doesn't build pressure either. So you're going to a substance that doesn't transfer the heat as well as water, but then again, it never boils. And if you do have steam or a pocket or something like that, yeah, you're not having any heat transfer. So it's better to have something rather than nothing. But I think it really depends on the application.
I think it's too the way they clean them out. Because my friend, I got 2 guys that do off-roading, and they swear by that.
Yeah, it has advantages, but there's, you know, it also takes up a lot of horsepower to move it through the system.
Oh, it does?
It's thick. It's thick, yeah. It's kind of like the difference between the ethylene glycol coolants and the propylene glycols. They're like a lot thicker, the other ones, yeah. It's like glycerol, like, yeah. Back here,
Straight to the block, Mike.
what we did back here is
Yeah.
made like a sandwich plate with 2 copper buses on there. So now anything we attach to that, it's like a really good content.
So from there, on the other side, it goes to the block? Or you don't have nothing to the block directly?
So this goes up to a point, and then from that point, it tees off there to the block, to the front chassis.
You might want to put that one a little bit
Yeah, I
bigger.
think I need to go bigger.
Go bigger, because that's a long run.
It is, yeah.
And you have a lot of stuff going on.
And it pulls like almost 300 amps when you crank it. I mean, it's, you know, instantaneously, it's pulling like 300 amps. So.
Then another thing you need to check too is add up all your electrical things and how many amps are you pulling. Your alternator might not be enough. You might have to go to like the ones we got, the DC ones. They have some that are up to 270. That's what I got in my RX-2. Like my RX-8 has a 180 16 volt alternator, and on the RX-8 I'm right at around 173 amps that I'm pulling. So I've just got like barely enough. Barely
Yeah, the
enough.
ignition system takes a lot. The ignition system takes up a lot, and then all your fuel pumps. If you have electric pumps, they're bang bang.
Yeah, because I tell people like, oh yeah, the new smart coils, they're really nice and convenient, but what they don't know is each coil is 22 amps. So you got 4 of them, you just sucked up 88 amps on coils alone, nothing else. And you know, most of these guys are running around in RX-7s with 110 alternator,
Yeah,
110
they're
amps.
lucky if they don't have the 80
Yeah.
amp one.
And that's no good. So add all that up. That might be the next thing you have to do is upgrade the alternator.
One thing we did to really cut that down though is I don't know if you started playing with them, brushless fuel pumps and brushless electric fans.
No, but I heard about them.
It's
but no.
definitely the way to go. The electric fan, I used to have the regular Spal one in there. It worked great, but it pulls like 40 amps.
I think when it first starts, it
yeah,
goes like 70 amps.
Yeah.
70 or 80. Because even like my car, it goes
Yep.
when they first come on, yeah.
But switched over to the new version of those, which are brushless.
Oh, Spal has new brushless
Yeah,
ones?
12 amps.
Oh, they do.
And it outperforms it, so less current draw.
How's the CFM on them?
The same or higher for the
Oh,
same
I need
size.
to look into that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's
How
probably
much are they? $200
double.
more?
Yeah,
Double?
about double. Yeah, about $200 more, but it's worth
Oh,
every
that's what I
penny.
need to get then. I'm upgrading.
I mean, by the time you do that, the amount of headache you save with the relays and everything else, because you got to run like 80 amp relays.
That's what I have to. That's exactly got a 75 amp relay on
those
there.
big ones and
the
stuff.
big heavy duty
that are only
latching
like
ones.
the 4-blade ones.
Yeah.
You can't use the standard ones.
Mhm.
The other thing we started switching over to are the solid state relays. So on the ECUs that you can use a low side driver, those work great because there's nothing to wear out. So I'll never have anything wear out there. And with the brushless pumps, it's pretty badass. So right now, I just have a conventional pump in the tank that works as a lift pump. It lifts it into here, and then
Okay, let me ask you this. How big is the lift pump?
the lift pump says it's what is it? They rated it like 480 liter per hour, but that's at like, I forgot what it is. That's at like
So you don't know what it is
45
free flowing.
or 45.
You don't know what it is free flowing.
I did the test on it. So free flowing, it's good.
So
It'll do
free
about
flowing-
1200 horsepower free flowing.
So free flowing, it's good. So free flowing, those won't suck it dry.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the other thing that I do too is instead of running the return direct back into there,
No, you go into here.
I go into here.
That's how
So
I
now I
mine
have
too.
it filling back into there.
Here, and then if this is full, it goes over there. Yeah, that's what
So
I had to do to mine too.
if this ran into a situation where it wasn't keeping up, it would still have this much capacity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which is a lot.
Oh.
Right? It's,
Well, that's
you know,
probably good
at-
for through the gears once.
at least, yeah.
Through the gears once.
No, they're not that big at all. So this is the same pump you'd find in the Bugatti Veyron and stuff. Also in some of the BMWs and stuff actually use it too, the newer vehicles. A couple things though. It's different from a standard pump. One is you'll notice 3 wires go into it. What does that mean? Well, it's not just power and ground. You actually have to run a speed controller, which converts the signal because it's almost like an AC pump in here. It's like the way it hits the 3 poles in there. So you need a controller that does that. The other thing that's different about these is they don't have, typical in-tank fuel pump will have a check valve. So you have to add a check valve.
That's a nice check valve. I've never seen one that size.
Yeah, so you stick that on there, and now you've got something here. This will basically support 1,000 horsepower and E85 with a single pump.
Oh, this is a nice one too, a nice stock. I never seen one like this.
Okay, cool.
What do you have in here? A spring?
Yeah, there's a spring in there that keeps it from collapsing. Yeah, I
How
think I
many
got that
left on
from Fuel Lab. I think I bought
Fuel
that
Lab?
from Fuel Lab. That makes those.
So they make it for the brushless pump.
No, they make it for something else. I
modified
made this adapter here on the bottom of it.
Oh, okay.
So I made this, radiused it, and had that so I can bang pop that on there. As far as the controller goes, I built my own. You'll see, I keep 2 on the card. I've never had one fail, but I didn't know how they,
work.
I didn't know how well they would work. But inside here is my circuit, and then I've got the power ground and the control wire going in here. And then I would just, if I need to switch it, I just bang, flip it on there, and I've got a new controller going.
So basically, you're just feeding the power.
Power ground, and then a pulse switch with modulated signal from the ECU. So a low side driver. So I make a map for that, and I can base it on airflow through the engine. I have a couple different things I can base
So
on.
at low RPM, no boost.
Low speed.
And
So
then
my
once
pump's
you
not working.
100%, and you stand up there,
Yeah.
you turn it on all the way.
Yeah, it's nice. So same thing with the current draw. You're not pulling current until you need it. So the pump idle runs at like 4.5 amps, and then full tilt it only still runs 14 amps. That's at 100 psi head pressure.
You have 2 of those in here.
I just have one.
Oh,
Actually.
you have one,
I have
okay.
one. I was gonna put 2, but I never got around to doing it yet. So right now, what I have in there is one of them, and then I also have just a standard pump as a booster. Because, like I said, it handles up to 1,000 horsepower since we're making about 1300 right now off the bottle, or almost 1300 off the bottle. I have that second pump come on at about 850 horsepower, just to kind of make sure there's no chasing. The other thing you can try too is changing the voltage to the pumps. So if you overdrive the pumps, just under those conditions where you need it, you can get a lot more output out of them. You could use something, as simple as like the
Step up.
Yeah, is it Plasma Lift from Ignition Projects? They make one called Plasma Lift. It's a little box. You can probably do one fuel pump per box.
And it goes from because right now when I turn on my car, I'm at 14.8.
So you can adjust it. You could probably
16.
kick it up to 18, 20 volts if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, so any of those pumps, you can also just build a circuit, a pretty simple circuit with a second battery on there. That'll give it 24 volts whenever you want it. And then you've got, the thing will double its output. It's a lot of current, but in a short period of time, and then you're fine.
Who cares, yeah.
You just have it for wide open throttle.
Yeah, I might do that then.
That way he doesn't have to worry about it in the future.
That was brand new, huh?
Yeah.
Track system?
Yeah. Brand new one. I bought that in Japan when I went
Oh, just recently?
last year. It was last year, I think, yeah. Last year, Tokyo Auto Salon.
Did you get a deal?
On the tour.
Yeah. Or did they rate you?
No, I found it at Up Garage. So I found one at Up Garage, and I don't think they knew exactly what it was. I bought it for $100. That's got to be $1,500 new.
Oh, you clean house.
And I bought it for $100. I was like, yes.
You Lord. I wish you could have found go out there and find some Mazda parts like that.
Yeah, good luck.
All right, Mike, I'll see you. I'll
All right.
call you.
Okay, we'll have a good one. Thank you so much for coming down.
Okay, bye.
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 That was actually a lot of good info, huh?
Just free ball over?
It's free balling.
Just wang it? Just
Mm-hmm.
wung it?
I mean, Nick went out. He was, doing some work with Johnny or something like that. I don't know what you had going on.
Tyler?
Oh, Tyler. You were Tyler today.
True. I'm not sure which car's slower, Tyler's, the Fit or is S2000?
They both suck, huh?